Iran extends access to airspace for overflights. U.S. multinationals on track for minimum tax reprieve. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Iran has expanded access to its airspace for international overflights following a ceasefire with Israel, though flight restrictions remain in place across much of the country. Spokesman for the Ministry of Roads and Urban Development, Majid Akhavan, said in addition to the eastern half of the country's airspace being available for domestic, international and overflight operations, the airspace over the central and western parts of the country has also been opened only for international overflights. Flights to and from airports in the north, south and west of the country, including Tehran's Mehrabad and Imam Khamenei international airports, remained suspended. Akhavan said all citizens are requested not to go to airports located in the northern, southern and western regions of the country, urging travelers to follow updates through official sources only. The move comes after Iran reopened its eastern airspace on Wednesday following a ceasefire that ended 12 days of fighting with Israel. Iran had closed its skies entirely on 13th June after Israel launched a wave of airstrikes, prompting Iranian missile retaliation. Gaza mediators are engaging with Israel and Hamas to build on momentum from this week's ceasefire with Iran and work towards a truce in the Palestinian territory. Israel and Iran on Tuesday agreed to a ceasefire brokered by the U.S. and Qatar. Qatar Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid Al-Ansari said Doha, with fellow Gaza mediators in Washington and Cairo, is now trying to use the momentum that was created by the ceasefire between Israel and Iran to restart the talks over Gaza. Mediators have been engaging in months of back-and-forth negotiations with the warring parties aimed at ending 20 months of war in Gaza, with Ansari explaining there are no current talks between the sides, but Qatar is heavily involved in talking to every side separately. The Qatari official said, particularly in the context of U.S. enforcement of the Israel-Iran truce, it is not far-fetched idea that the pressure from Washington would achieve a fresh truce in Gaza. He added Qatar is working with them very closely to make sure that the right pressure is applied from the international community as a whole, especially from the U.S., to see both parties at the negotiating table. The two-month truce previously collapsed in March, with Israel intensifying military operations in Gaza afterwards. Meanwhile, France as well as Europe stand ready to contribute to the safety of food distribution in the Palestinian territory of Gaza. Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot's comments came as criticism grew over mounting civilian deaths at Israel-backed aid distribution centers in the territory. He explained that such an initiative would also deal with Israeli concerns that armed groups were getting hold of the assistance. Barrot expressed anger over the 500 people whose deaths were linked to food distribution in Gaza in recent weeks. Aid groups Doctors Without Borders denounced the U.S. and Israeli-backed food distribution effort in Gaza as slaughter masquerading as humanitarian aid. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres meanwhile stressed that hungry people in Gaza seeking food must not face a death sentence. According to the Health Ministry in Gaza, since late May, more than 500 people have been killed near aid centers while seeking scarce supplies. On a related note, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said Israeli forces killed at least 37 people in the devastated territory yesterday, including at least 9 children who died in strikes. Civil Defense spokesman Mahmoud Basal said 35 people were killed in 7 Israeli drone and airstrikes in various locations, and 2 others by Israeli fire while waiting for food aid in the Netrazim zone in central Gaza. He explained that the dead included 3 children who were killed in an airstrike on a home in Jabalia in northern Gaza. Basal further said at least 6 more children died in a neighborhood in the northeast of Gaza City, including some in an airstrike near a school where displaced people were sheltering. Now, according to Gaza's health ministry, Israel's illegal military campaign has killed at least 56,420 people, mostly civilians. The United Nations considers these figures to be reliable. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said it is extremely important for Kyiv to maintain friendly ties with neighboring Poland, where incoming negotiations on nationalist leader Karol Nawrocki opposes Ukraine's NATO bid. Nawrocki won Poland's presidential election this month after a campaign in which he criticized Ukraine and accused Zelensky of indecent behavior towards his allies. Zelensky hosted outgoing Polish President Andrzej Duda in Kyiv ahead of Nawrocki's inauguration on August 6.
Для нас надзвичайно важливо зберегти такий характер відносин, зберегти таку підтримку, таке взаєморозуміння між нашими націями. Принцип добросусідства, принцип за нашу і вашу свободу, принцип вирішувати будь-яку проблему через дуже поважний діалог.
Poland has taken in over 1 million Ukrainians since Russia's invasion of the country began in 2022. But anti-Ukrainian sentiment has grown in recent years, intensifying during the election campaign. In May, Nawrocki said Ukraine has not shown gratitude for what Poles have done and accused Zelensky of insolence. However, Duda said he believes Nawrocki would build the best possible neighborly relations for the future of both countries. Elsewhere, the body of the Japanese climber who died while trying to climb Peru's highest mountain was recovered by the rescue team. Footage taken by rescuers on the snow-capped Kerana mountain, which raises to over 6,700 meters above the sea level, showed the squad moving the remains of 40-year-old Chiaki Inada on a stretcher. Peruvian media reported that Inada was covered by snow, and because of the bad weather, they had to use ropes to move the stretcher. Inada and her friend Saki Terada got lost during the hike in the Huascaran Mountains on Monday. They were found by rescuers on Wednesday, but Inada died shortly after due to severe hypothermia. A police helicopter transferred the remains of Inada to a morgue in the city of Huaraz, some 400 kilometers north of Lima. Still ahead, China opposes any tariff deal made at its expense.
Bersihkan penapis penghawa dingin dan tetapkan 24 darjah Celsius untuk lebih jimat.
The group of 7 nations said they have agreed to exempt U.S. multinational companies from a global minimum tax imposed by other countries, a win for President Donald Trump's government, which pushed hard for the compromise. Now, this is according to a statement released by Canada, which holds the group's rotating presidency. The deal will see U.S. companies benefit from a side-by-side solution under which they will only be taxed at home on both domestic and foreign profits. The agreement was reached in part due to recently proposed changes to the U.S. international tax system included in Trump's signature domestic policy bill, which is still being debated in Congress. The statement said the side-by-side system could provide greater stability and certainty in the international tax system moving forward. Nearly 140 countries struck a deal in 2021 to tax multinational companies, an agreement negotiated under the auspices of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The agreement, deeply criticized by Trump, includes 2 pillars, the second of which sets a minimum global tax rate of 50%. The G7 said it looked forward to expeditiously reaching a solution that is acceptable and implementable to all. China firmly opposes any country making trade deals with the U.S. at the expense of the Chinese interests in exchange for tariff relief. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Commerce said if such a situation arises, China will not accept it and will take resolute countermeasures to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests. Now, since April, the U.S. has been pushing reciprocal tariffs on its trade partners. The spokesperson said this is a typical act of unilateral bullying that seriously undermines the multilateral trading system and disrupts the normal international trade order, adding that China has consistently and firmly opposed such practices. The spokesperson also said that China welcomes efforts by other countries to resolve trade differences with the U.S. through consultations on equal footing. It urges all sides to uphold fairness and justice, remain on the right side of history, and resolutely defend international economic and trade rules, as well as the multilateral trading system. Now, according to the spokesperson, it is proven that only by firmly defending its principle and position can a country truly protect its legitimate rights. Thousands of protesters rallied in the Thai capital Bangkok to demand a resignation of Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra, piling pressure on the government at risk of collapse over a border dispute with neighboring Cambodia. Protesters said leaked audio recordings casting doubt over the Prime Minister's motives was the final straw that broke their allegiance. In the largest such rally since the ruling Thai party came into power in 2023, crowds braved forecasts of potentially heavy monsoon rain to demonstrate against Paetongtarn, who is also battling to revive a faltering economy and keep a fragile coalition together ahead of a potential no-confidence vote next month. The demonstration was organized by the United Force of Land, a coalition of largely nationalist activists who have rallied against other Shinawatra-backed governments over the last 2 decades. In a statement read aloud before the crowd, the group said the executive branch and parliament were not working in the interest of democracy and constitutional monarchy. They said remaining coalition partners should quit immediately. Meanwhile, Cambodia's Senate and ruling party President Hun Sen said they have the will to solve the border dispute with Thailand peacefully. In a speech at a rally event marking the 74th founding anniversary of the ruling party, the Cambodian People's Party in Phnom Penh. Hun Sen said the action by the Thai army at the disputed area was a serious violation of Cambodia's sovereignty and territorial integrity, despite the country's goodwill in attempting to resolve the border issue.
ពីអតីតកាលកម្ពុជាបានបាត់បង់ទឹកដីរបស់ខ្លួនច្រើនណាស់ហើយដោយសារការឈ្លានពានដណ្ដើមយកពីបរទេសយើងប្រុងប្រយ័ត្នការពីបូរណភាពទឹកដីបច្ចុប្បន្នដែលបន្សល់ទុកបន្ទាប់ពីសម័យអាណានិគមនិយមឲ្យគង់វង្សថិតថេរជានិរន្តរ៍មិនឲ្យបាត់បង់សូម្បីតែមួយចំណែកតូចណាក្តី
The deterioration of relations was sparked by a brief armed clashes in the border area late month that left one Cambodian soldier dead. Now, what followed were a series of tit-for-tat measures by both countries, including troop mobilizations, Cambodia's suspension of all fuel and gas imports from its neighbor, and the partial closure of checkpoints by Thailand along the 817-kilometer land border. Tens of thousands of opponents of Serbia's populist president, Aleksandar Vučić, rallied in Belgrade, backing up their demand for an early parliamentary election after nearly 8 months of protests that have rattled his firm grip on power in the Balkan country. Now, tensions have soared ahead of a rally that was organized by university students, a key force behind nationwide anti-corruption demonstrations that started after a renovated rail station canopy collapsed, killing 16 people on November 1st last year. Many blamed the concrete roof crash on rampant government corruption and negligence in state infrastructure projects, leading to recurring mass protests. Vučić and his right-wing Serbian Progressive Party have repeatedly refused the demand for an early vote and accused protesters of planning to spur violence on orders from abroad, which they did not specify. Vučić's authorities have launched a crackdown on Serbia's striking universities and other opponents while increasing pressure on independent media as they try to curb the demonstrations. However, the massive showing for yesterday's anti-Vučić rally suggested that the resolve persists despite relentless pressure and after nearly 8 months of almost deadly protests or daily protests. Heavy rain struck China's southwestern Guizhou province again yesterday, half submerged the already flood-stricken riverside city of Rongjiang for a second time this week and prompting the evacuation of residents to higher ground. Located at the confluence of 3 rivers and home to 300,000 residents, Rongjiang was inundated earlier this week by record downpours that left 6 dead and forced more than 80,000 people to flee their homes. The amount of rain that fell over 72 hours was double the city's average for June. In response to the new round of flooding, authorities raised the city's flood emergency response level to the highest level. More than 40,000 residents in Rongjiang had been urgently evacuated yesterday. Earlier this week, the peak water level reached 256.7 meters, the highest since 1954. The Guizhou provincial government, in a statement, blamed the extreme climate for the flooding. The floods in southwest China are also set to hit local economies. Rongjiang was removed from the national poverty list in 2020. Then saw unexpected tourism boom after a local football league nicknamed Village Super League became a social media sensation, attracting thousands of fans and tourists. Quarterfinal.
Peralatan elektrik 5 bintang memberikan penjimatan 5 bintang.
Now, Paul Pogba has joined AS Monaco on a free transfer after signing a 2-year contract as the 32-year-old French midfielder looks to revive his career following a doping ban. Pogba has handed a 4-year doping ban in February last year after testing positive for DHEA, which boosts testosterone levels. Now, the suspension was cut to 18 months after successful appeal at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Italian club Juventus announced in November that they had mutually agreed to terminate his contract, which was due to expire in June next year. The 2018 World Cup winner had a disappointing second spell with Juventus due to injuries after returning to the Turin-based club following his departure from Manchester United on a free transfer in 2022. Pogba was signed by United in 2016 for a then World Cup world record fee of £89 million, but the 4-time Serie A champion won only 2 trophies with the Premier League club. He last played for France in 2022, but knee surgery prevented him from appearing at the World Cup in Qatar. Substitute Paulinho scored an extra time winner to settle a Brazilian battle of attrition as Palmeiras edged Botafogo 1-0 to win through to the Club World Cup quarterfinals. 64th into 3-time champion Taylor Fritz came out on top in an All-American decider, beating lucky loser Jensen Brooksby 7-5, 6-1 in the Eastbourne Open final to return his title. Fritz has never lost a final at Eastbourne, also beating fellow Americans when winning in 2019 and 2022, and having been taken the 3 sets in his 3 previous matches at this year's edition. The final was more straightforward affair. Now, this top seed was made to battle the opening set, with Brooksby breaking first, but Fritz responded immediately and broke a second time to clinch the set. Now, Fritz had little trouble wrapping up the straight sets win, even when with Brooksby forcing 2 break points with the second set poised to 1-all. But the champion held firm and broke Brooksby's next 2 service games to win his 4th title. The 27-year-old Fritz will now go to Wimbledon full of optimism, having also won the Stuttgart Open earlier in June, and his tournament begins against Frenchman Giovanni Mpessi Pericard in Monday. In the women's singles, Australian teenager Maya Joint saved 4 match points to clinch the WTA title at Eastbourne with a dramatic victory over Alexandra Ella that ended the Filipinas' history bid. Joint survived a tense clash lasting 2 hours and 26 minutes, emerging with a 6-4, 1-6, 7-6 win to seal her 2nd WTA Tour title. In the youngest Eastbourne final since 1981, world number 51 Joint staved off the 4 championship points in a gripping final set tie-break. She finally wrapped up the title by drilling a backhand winner before collapsing to the turf in delight. Having also defeated former Wimbledon runners-up Ons Jabeur and 2021 US Open champion Emma Raducanu at Eastbourne, Joint has underlined her status as one of the rising stars of the women's tour. After winning on clay in Barabat in May, the 19-year-old has proved she can thrive on grass as well as ahead of the start of Wimbledon on Monday. It was a painful defeat for Ella, who was so close to become the first player from the Philippines to win a WTA World Tour title. The 20-year-old wiped away tears of frustration during the on-court trophy presentation. From lobster sculptures to mini-sized buildings, take a look at amazing offbeat stories this week. Lobster sculptures by British pop artist Philip Colbert are changing the face of a famous English stately home. The sculptures were revealed recently in what is being billed as a takeover of the iconic National Trust estate, Weddiston Manor in Buckinghamshire in southern England. Colbert's brilliant sculpture Lobster Flower Reclining takes pride of place in the spectacular grounds surrounding the French-style chateau. Another stainless steel sculpture, Lobster Sunflowers, features on the south front overlooking the Victorian patio.
It's really incredible to put contemporary art into such context. I've always loved this idea that the spirit of my art is this idea of trying to go beyond time, and I think being in a location like this, truly like a place which is so inspired by mythology and fantasy and craftsmanship, I mean, it really is like a phenomenal vision, I guess, of art from all centuries, really.
The lobster displays will remain in place until 6th July as part of the Historic Estate's annual Summer Fest. A museum in Lund in southern Sweden is hosting an exhibition this summer featuring street art by Inanimaus, the unanimous art duo behind miniature mouse houses. The collective works, founded by Elin Westerholm and Lupus Nensen, first gained prominence in December 2016 when a tiny mouse restaurant appeared in Malmö in southern Sweden. Since then, their installations, ranging from a pharmacy in Lund, a radio studio in Quebec, Canada, to a castle on the Isle of Man in the United Kingdom, have charmed people worldwide. In the spring of 2025, Westerholm and Nansen revealed their identities, announcing simultaneously that their creative project had come to an end.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 9 years, so it came gradually. Yeah. But we wanted to build something together and something we would like to find as kids in the streets. A bit of everyday magic.
This Kisarnas Museum exhibition features selected installations from Malmo and Lund, alongside sketches and preparatory works that offer insight into Wesselholm and Nansen's creative process. The exhibition runs through the summer, offering visitors a chance to explore the duo's street-level storytelling. A massive chocolate cow weighing over 500 kilograms became the star attraction at a chocolate festival in southern Chile, captivating visitors with its impressive scale and artistry. The life-size chocolate sculpture served as the centerpiece of a third annual chocolate festival in Osorno, drawing crowds of amazed onlookers who marveled at the 550-kilogram creation made entirely of pure chocolate. The remarkable masterpiece was crafted through a collaboration between master chocolatiers, professional sculptors, and local culinary artist students, who worked together to bring the project to life. Festival goers watched in fascination as the detailed sculpture took center stage, with the child even collecting liquid chocolate that flowed from the cow's udder. In a sweet finale to the event, organizers Chef Carlo von Mullenbrock and the culinary students who helped create the sculpture broke up the chocolate cow. Pieces of the impressive creation were then auctioned off to the attendees. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Iran extends access to airspace for overflights. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Otto Othman, Malaysia MADANI, Rakyat Disantuni. Thanks for watching.
Ancaman